We back. Welcome back to an all-new episode here at Let's Talk Lions. My name is Jay. Good to have you back here. Took the month of February off because why not? Seeing as nothing is happening and the Lions should have been in the Super Bowl and we weren't. That's a whole thing. I don't want to get into it. I feel a lot like the beginning of the movie of Tangled, right? Where Rapunzel figures out like, hey, I can leave. She leaves. And then she's like, oh my God, I'm never going back. But then she's like, I'm the worst. I want to go back. That's kind of what February felt like with the Lions being like, should have gone all the way. Wait, it was a great season. I'm very thankful for it. But we could have gone all the way. But I'm very thankful for everything that happened. So, felt a lot like Rapunzel and Tangled. Which, quite frankly, if you have not seen Tangled, shut this off. Go sit down. Give it a watch. It's probably one of the best Disney movies there is. If at all the best Disney movie there is. I digress. Welcome back. We got a lot going down. This is the week in which everything begins to happen. The combine taking place, and all of a sudden free agency is going to kick off here Monday of next week. What is that, the 11th? So this is where everything starts to turn up, where things start getting a little heated. Lions have a lot of defensive needs coming into this year. You and I both know it, and the biggest one that I see personally, it's the cornerback situation. It's what's going on in the secondary. That was our greatest downfall last year, was our cornerback, was the secondary. One of the greatest downfalls. Some people might point to the rush up front. Linebacker room was locked down. Alex Anzalone was an absolute animal. And really, when I look at the cornerback situation and the secondary, that's where we are weakest. Lions have already, nixed Tracy Walker, which I'm sure you already know. That happened a couple weeks back. But getting rid of him opens up $5.5 million worth of cap space. And the Lions are sitting at the 8th best spot in the NFL when it comes to cap space heading into this year, with about $52 million worth of space. Listen, Brad Holmes has undone what Matt Patricia locked up. Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia said, hey, why don't we just lock ourselves down for years? It's going to be a great time. Brad Holmes has come in and said, I'm a wizard. And just kind of, I regret doing that noise, but he has opened up the cap space. He has done wonders. He has done wonders in the draft. He's done wonders in free agency. And this is where, over the last couple years, you and I know it, Brad Holmes hasn't been the big splash guy. He has not gone down H2O and made a big splash in free agency, finding the guy, the big kahuna, the big tuna, whatever you want to call it, that costs Detroit money and locks us up for years to come, right? I mean, you look at, I think probably the biggest splash he made was between Montgomery and Sutton last year. Those were two big ones. Getting Montgomery was huge, and that was one that I was like, okay, I am all aboard the Monty train, because watching him in Chicago, he was just a bowling ball, and he always gave us a run for our money. And then seeing what he did last year, thank God we went out and got him. But that wasn't even a huge cap space hit. It was like 18 mil over 3 years, right? Cam Sutton was a big one, and quite frankly, Cam Sutton is a phenomenal cornerback, but he's not a CB1, and he needs some help. And I know a lot of people point to him last year, and there's a lot of frustration. Listen, Sutton was working pretty much alone because C.J. Gardner-Johnson went down. Mosley went down immediately. Cam Sutton had a lot of work cut out for him, and he did the best he could. And then we had to bring in guys like Vildor, right? The cornerback room has been tough, and that's where, when it comes to the draft and it comes to free agency, I would rather see Brad Holmes make a move in free agency to snag a very specific individual, specifically Sneed, out of Kansas City. Look, us sitting where we are with the cap space that we have, I do feel comfortable enough to go ahead and grab Sneed out of Kansas City. However, I am worried that Kansas City, the Chiefs, are going to put the franchise tag on that young man. And I would if I were them. I would, because he poses, He poses a huge threat in the secondary. He has been a dog for them. He's the type of guy that I would love to see here in Detroit. We can afford to bring him in, and we have the draft capital as well. Specifically, when I look at the second day, so rounds 2 and 3 in the draft this year, we've got 3 picks slated. We've got 3 picks slated, 1 in the second round, 2 in the third round. I believe they are picks. Round 2 is pick 61 overall, and round 3 is 73 and 92. So we have some draft capital that maybe we can work into a trade with Kansas City or work into a deal with Kansas City before they use the franchise tag. But quite frankly, Lions need help at the cornerback position, and I would rather get a free agent. I'd rather get a guy like Sneed, who is a veteran, who is well-equipped to make and actually just hop into our secondary and be ready to go. Not everybody's Brian Branch. Brian Branch was able to hop out there and be a dog game 1, picking off Patty Mahomes. Granted, Tony, volleyball set right to him. But you look at Sneed last year, 2 picks, 14 passes defended against, 78 total tackles, played in 16 games total. I think he is the number one guy that people are looking at, and there's a couple teams in the market for a cornerback that could really use one. I believe Miami's another team. But I look down the list of available free agents, and I'm like, dude, Marshawn Lattimore, not interested. I just think, I know he's played in Aaron Glenn's defensive scheme for quite a few years, but I'm also like, Lattimore, he's the same age as Sneed. He's 27, but he has been battling a bunch of injuries over the last couple of years, and I don't want to make the jump to an injured player. I see what happened with Mosley last year, even C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Like, not that he has been an injury-prone individual, but I don't want to chance it. I want to stay away from that. And then you start looking, and some of these guys are just a little bit older, right? Stephon Gilmore from the boys. He's 33. I don't want to chance that. There's also Jalen Johnson from Chicago. So between the two, between Sneed and Johnson, those are like my top 2 guys. Jalen Johnson's a dog. Highly rated off of PFF. Whatever you think about PFF, just for a second, let's take it into account. But he's young. He's 24, 25 years old compared to Sneed, who's 27. However, it sounds like Chicago wants to re-sign him. And Chicago's trying to make some moves to fight for a division here. What they're going to do with Justin Fields, I don't know. But between between all the cornerbacks that are going to hit the open market, for me, it's Sneed or Johnson. And if we could snag one of those 2, I would be pretty amped, specifically with the amount of cap space that we do have open. They're going to cost. They will. And so is it worth bringing in a lockdown corner for some top dollar? I think it might be, rather than looking in the draft. We have pick 29, and what cornerback is going to be available. I've been doing classic research heading into the draft. That's something that we'll get into after the free agency period opens up, because there's no reason to start, for me, getting way too excited about guys, and then all of a sudden you pick up a free agent and you're like, oh, okay, we're not going to be hitting that. But in the draft, we got to look at centers. We got to look at guards. We got to look at, I know we got Frank Ragnow coming back, but long story short, man, there's so much the Lions do need to do. Even though we were 1 win away from heading to the Super Bowl, we have a lot of work to do on the defensive side still. And I would love to get some talent, some top-tier talent in for Aaron Glenn and for that scheme. This way we can really see, okay, like what Aaron Glenn has done. I know some people don't like him. Whatever, dude. I love him. And I think he's done a phenomenal job with the guys he has had. And the developing process of these young guys is only going to get better. It's only going to get better with Brian Branch, Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, and bringing in that Betts guy from outside the NFL is going to be interesting. But I would love to bring in a top pedigree cornerback. And I am cool with making that move in free agency, being willing to spend more money for the first time in the Brad Holmes Dan Campbell era. But what about you? What are your thoughts? Are you willing to make that move? Would you rather look in the draft? Jalen Johnson, Sneed from Kansas City. How do you guys feel about those two? That's kind of where I'm landing. Because Jalen Johnson, the thing about Jalen Johnson, though, is Chicago's cap space is even better than ours. They're almost at 80 mil, which is pretty wild. So I feel like if they're losing somebody, it is him. However, it's really, does he want to stick around, I think, in Chicago? But I think they can pay. They can pay. Hey, but these are just some of my first thoughts regarding the cornerback room, regarding the defense, regarding free agency. We got a ton more to talk about, but I just thought we would kick off March as here comes the new 2024 season. It is exciting. But yeah, man, drop your thoughts in the comments. Are you as interested in Sneed or Johnson as I am? Are you more like, I'd rather try to find a guard. I would rather try to find a defensive tackle somewhere along the way? Drop your thoughts in the comments when it comes to the free agency period. It's good to be back. Good to be back hanging out with you. Happy day of the week. Whatever day it is that this releases. Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? Or is it Monday? Either way, it is another day in which you get to live. I don't know where this is going.